we are off. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Opening up my chat. Love to hear from you. Hear how you're doing. Really excited to have Jen with us today. Thank you so much for coming, Jen.
I'm so happy to be
Well,
here, Oliver. Thank you for inviting me.
yeah, no problem. We are going to have a blast talking about character today. Let me get some of my
One
notes
of
pulled up.
my very favorite things to do.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the pillars of writing a good book. If you don't have good characters, I mean, do you even have a good book? Do you even have a book to worth reading? I don't think so. Someone might argue with me. I'm sure that some person will be like, "Oh, you can have a good book without good characters," but I don't think so. I think if you really want a good book, you got to have some really strong characters.
I mean, maybe you can write a story without characters, but I think if you're going to write a story and
Uh-huh.
have characters, then they better be
Yeah,
good ones. They better be
that's
good
true.
ones. They got to have depth. They got to have layers, right?
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
who here is an onion for layers? Are you an onion or are you a trifle? Which one are you? Or a parfait?
Or parfait. Ooh, parfait sounds good. Oh, I can go for a parfait. Trifle. That's
Mm-hmm.
what the
All
recipe
onion all the
says.
time. Love it.
I'm a chocolate croissant. Ooh, that sounds good.
Oh, that's my kind of layer. Yeah, chocolate
Yeah.
croissant.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh, this is great, guys. So I'm going to ask this question. What, or who rather, who is your favorite fictional character and what is it about that character that made them just like unforgettable to you? If you could pinpoint, let's try one thing. What's one thing about that character that made them unforgettable for you?
Oh my gosh, my favorite character.
Ah,
This is a hard one to answer. Okay, so I'm gonna not answer it. I am
okay.
gonna say though, and it'll become very obvious later on in this conversation, but Sherlock Holmes is one of the characters that I have a very significant amount of love for. One of the things I truly love about the Sherlock as a character is is how many times that we get to see that dynamic play out and how many times that we can reinterpret who he is and what he stands for.
Mm,
Love seeing that happen in every different iteration. So I'm here for the Guy Ritchie movies. I'm here for the historical BBC,
oh yeah. Yeah.
straight out of Sir Conan Doyle. Um,
Mhm.
I love all of it. When I was in London for the London Book Fair last year, had a wonderful time. Had one day that I could go do something for me, and I absolutely went to the Sherlock Holmes Museum at 221 Baker Street. Highly recommend.
Oh,
It was
that's
just a really
awesome.
wonderful time. So yeah, I'm gonna say Sherlock Holmes.
Sherlock Holmes. Man, you stole mine. Seriously, I love Holmes. I have the whole volume of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's thing. I have the audiobook. I've listened to the entire thing from start to finish. Oh, I just
Mhm.
his character is just so captivating. And it's funny
I
because
love
he's
it.
not even like the main character in the story. We're hearing this all from Watson's point of view, but there's just
Yes.
something about him that you're just, oh, I love that character. And Watson is awesome too. I mean, it's just the two together. I mean,
Hmm.
it's just exceptional writing. And this is, I mean,
Absolutely exceptional.
these are old
And
stories. And go ahead,
just
go
to
ahead.
pick up
Yep.
on something you said, is that we get the Sherlock Holmes stories not from Sherlock Holmes. We get them
Yep.
from John Watson.
Yep.
And when we talk about like having a storytelling technique that allows you to bring in other kinds of layers, we get to see Sherlock through John's eyes, and that just changes it up. Just
It
changes
sure
it up.
does. It
POV,
sure
man.
does.
POV matters.
Oh, it does. It does 100%. Yeah. It can change the entire story and make it completely different. So you got to figure that out. Okay, well, I think we're just a couple minutes after the hour, and we've got a pretty good sized group in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get us
Fabulous.
started,
Okay,
and then we'll turn it over to Jenny here in just a few minutes. So
great.
I just want to welcome everyone to our August 2025 Scrivener webinar series brought to you by the creative minds behind Scrivener and Scapple Literature and Latte. I'm Oliver Evanson, your host today, bringing you insights drawn from over 15 years of writing and Scrivener expertise. Now, before I get too far, let me share my screen real quick so everyone can see that. Okay. And where was I? Okay, so whether you're a seasoned author or just starting out your writing adventure, our webinars are designed with your needs in mind. And today we're going to be exploring crafting characters that readers love with complexity, depth, and surprise with Jen Graybeal. So I'm so excited to have her here with us. I'll also be standing by here to tackle any technical issues or answer your questions throughout the session. If you encounter any issues, please reach out to me in the Q&A would be ideal, but I'll try to keep an eye on the chat as well. Now, for those of you who wish to revisit today's session or share it with your fellow writers, the webinar is being recorded, and you can find the replay on our YouTube channel and enjoy it ad-free next week in the Literature and Latte webinar library. So links will be provided to that shortly. After Jen has completed her training, we're going to have a short Q&A where you can freely ask her your most pressing questions. Now, before we dive in, I would just like to give a quick word to thank the creators of Scrivener, Literature and Latte, for making these webinars freely available to all writers everywhere. Scrivener is the go-to writing tool for authors, screenwriters, and anyone tackling writing projects big or small. It's designed to help you organize your ideas, stay focused, and bring your stories to life. And as a special thank you for attending today's webinar, we are offering an exclusive discount code that 20% off your purchase of Scrivener or Scalpel on macOS or Windows until September 30th, 2025. And you can head over to scrivener.com to get started with our free trial. And when you're ready, please make sure to use your code here. Jen Graybeal 25. It looks like it's slowly coming here. There it goes. 25 to get started. Okay. Now, I do want to say it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, Jen. Jen is dedicated to empowering authors through encouraging feedback and collaborative problem solving and gently applied tough love. In 10 years of coaching, workshops, and editing projects, she has helped over 1,000 authors create stories they are proud of and businesses that align with their individual vision of success. Jen is an award winning certified creativity coach with a degree in English and an ever expanding to be read pile, with a furball assistant that is usually on her lap. Today, Jen is here to share her expertise and inspire us with her unique approach to crafting characters readers love. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Jen Graybeal. Thank you for coming, Jen.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. We are going to dive into some really fabulous characters and what is it that we can do to make them more lovable, irascible, interesting, give them some depth. Um, so we're going to talk about archetypes to start off with, and then we're going to talk about some group dynamics and sort of how all of that comes together to really create characters that are memorable, that really stick with people. So first, we got to answer, what is an archetype? An archetype is different than like a stereotype or than a cliche. A lot of times when we think about, and it's also not the same thing as a trope, all these different things, all these different terminology. But when we think about stereotype and cliche, it means something that's expected, but also implies that we haven't tried real hard to make it terribly interesting. When we think about an archetype, on the other hand, an archetype is like the skeleton that we use. We can think about the framing of a house. What is it? What are the different elements that are going to go into that? And then you are going to be able to dress it up in whatever way makes sense for you and for your story. So these archetypes are things that have recurred throughout history, throughout literature, and they are consistently enough to be considered a universal concept or situation. Now, I just want to say here before we get, just to sort of um, take off the shine just a little bit of this universal concept. We are coming at this from a Western lens first and foremost. We are coming at this from a primarily white male um, uh, perspective as well. That's what a lot of the um, commentary, that's where a lot of the critique comes in for the last few hundred years of looking at literature and looking at storytelling. That said, uh, this this workshop is really all about subverting some of those expectations and being able to play with it. Although I will say that if you want to take some deeper looks into different types of storytelling, different types of archetypes. If you go and Google it, how many different archetypes are there, you will get answers anywhere from 8 to 12 to 16 to 22. And in one particular case, 224 different archetypes. We are not going to cover 224 today. I really liked the number 12, so we're going to stick with 12. I just realized I don't know that my slides are sharing. So we're gonna switch that up a little bit. There we go. Hopefully you guys can all see all 12 archetypes that we're going to talk about.
Yep, we can see
So,
them.
um, what's interesting about the way that archetypes sort of outline and the way, oh, good. Thumbs up. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. You know, what's great about about having sort of different types of archetypes is that one of the things that we see is that they immediately are gendered. And when we look across the top, these four archetypes are most often associated with women, especially when we're talking about a virgin, a seductress, a mother, and a crone. Those traditionally apply primarily to women characters. Remember what I said. Sometimes we have to reinterpret this from a predominantly white, predominantly male interpretation into making it whatever it is that we want to be. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit when we get to the examples. But when we think about the virgin or the innocent, we want to think about this is someone who is being introduced into a world, and we can leverage this type of a character to be able to answer a lot of questions for us. We can use this almost as an audience insert in some situations and be able to have a much broader understanding of what's happening. And that's a great way to get things onto the page. Now, when we think about a seductress or a lover, when we think seductress has a little bit of a negative connotation to it. And so a lot of times that is interpreted as a distraction, somebody who is a liar in our midst. That's a very common trope. So we want to think about what that looks like because they are trying to infiltrate. But this can also be a way to give a character a humanizing purpose. They have somebody that they care about, somebody that they love, and somebody that they are willing to go outside of the norm in order to care for, in order to protect, in order to possess in some cases. Mother caregiver, this is someone who is doing that emotional work. They are giving emotional support. Sometimes they're also like literally the cook in the story, but we really think about them as that emotional support character. Crone and sage are sort of two sides of the same coin. They are a crone when they are giving you warnings, and they are a sage when they are giving you wisdom. Warnings are one of those think tools that we can use because a warning is something that we immediately want to reject, right? I know what I'm doing. I'm in charge here, but those warnings are often have some level of wisdom associated with them too. So heroes, of course, we can think about our military, our law enforcement, firefighters, those types of things. But beyond that, we want to think about the chosen one, right? Our Katniss Everdeen's out there, and those who provide leadership in a way that is maybe new to them or not something that they would be expected to be able to do. Magician, um, somebody who can perform magic. We immediately go thinking about our fae and our wizards and those types of supernatural creatures. But if we are in a story where we are a little bit more grounded, we think about the billionaires and our celebrities, right? Because what is it that a magician is able to do that's different than what other folks can bring to the table? And that is they make things happen, snap their fingers and decide we're going to go to Paris for the day, right? This type of magical ability we can assign in a contemporary modern story. Outlaws, we love anybody who is a rule breaker. We want to see them. Of course, we can enjoy them as the villain, as the foil to our antagonist. But there's something that we can bring to this when we're talking about a smuggler, when we're putting together a heist movie, when we're putting together a mafia or some other type of illegal entanglement, and how that is going to play out and where we put what are the characters that we hold up, the ones that we're loyal to, and what that means in terms of how that story plays out. A ruler, of course, might be head of state, head of the government, royalty, those types of things. But if you're telling kind of a smaller story, right? Maybe that's the boss of a work in that's inside of a workplace romance. Or maybe that is the head of family. Not necessarily the head of the mafia, although sometimes it could be. But if you think about the role of the matriarch in a story like Steel Magnolias or or in Lady Bird, those kinds of things, you might think about what that head of the family role is and how they influence the way that those other characters interact with each other and with that matriarch or head of the family. Everyman, we love to see an everyman, just someone who's trying to go about their life when something extraordinary is introduced to them. My husband and I just rewatched the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Do we have any fans out there? So long and thanks for all the fish. We love to have an everyman who is just so overwhelmed by this new world that they have found themselves in, who is not certain about what type of environment that they've landed in. And in some cases, they can play a role similar to what the innocent does, which is they have entered this strange world and everything has to be explained to them. But they can also just be the one that our audience is most likely to associate with, meaning they're just like us. And we love that character who's just like us. Then we have an explorer. An explorer, of course, can be on the hunt. Our Indiana Jones characters, they're out there and they're looking for things. But the explorer archetype is really about a quest for knowledge, right? They are looking to have experiences in this world. They are sometimes looking for power or objects that will bring them power. And sometimes they are in search of justice. And we'll talk more about this explorer archetype in a little bit. Creator, this is someone who tends to be sort of tireless and obsessive. So they are somebody who is creating something in an idealist way, which is a little bit different than the way our explorer goes about, creating or finding something. So it's a little bit of a different flavor. And then we have my personal favorite. I love a jester character. And I love a jester not only because they provide comic relief and we want to have something to laugh at, but my favorite type of jester is the one who provides insight without filter. They can be used in a manipulative way, like the Joker in Batman, for example. But when we think about the jester, you want to it's a character that can be extremely layered and interesting, while also keeping it very light. So let's see this play out a little bit here, okay? So we have a couple different archetypes, but when we're creating our characters, when we create characters, what we're looking for are characters that are going to be interesting and that they engage in believable relationships, even when those are aliens and wizards that are interacting together. We want to believe that these characters are together for a reason. What has brought them together? Maybe what has brought them together, doesn't equate to a lot of trust. And again, kind of going back to that Katniss Everdeen type character, she ends up in the Capitol and is surrounded by people that are there to help her in some way. And she has to immediately be able to trust them. And we think about who those characters are, the way that they approach her, and what it means to her to have them around her during this while she's engaged in the Hunger Games. So we want those characters to be believable, and those relationships, even more important, the relationships have to be believable. We want to be able to use all these different archetypes to build out our team. Even when you have a story that you're telling that is central to one character. Maybe you have a mystery series that has a consistent detective that is solving all of the mysteries in book after book after book. Maybe you are telling the story of one person's journey to enlightenment or fulfillment or what have you. Maybe you are telling the story of one person's healing journey that they are on. Whatever story it is that you're telling, there tends to be other characters that are going to surround them. Even in a story like Alice in Wonderland, who is the only sane or not so sane human that is making their way through Wonderland. encountering the caterpillar, encountering the Mad Hatter, encountering the flowers. All of that has a dynamic that is going to play out. And so as over the course of that story, we have a number of different teams that appear and create that and move that story along. Number one thing that the team can do, especially if you are telling a very individualistic story, is that team is able to share information. They build the world, they tell people about what's going on, they can answer questions, and they can really help to develop that world. But when you have characters that have more connection to them, what they bring is challenge and insight. So maybe these are very much in terms of being side characters, but those side characters can work with the main character to make them more insightful, to give them something else to think about, to bring a different perspective to the way that they are going about and moving the plot forward. And then, of course, when those side characters become main characters and are much more featured in the story, now they're there to provide conflict. When we think about our hero versus our villain, when we think about two characters that are trying to or not trying to fall in love, when we think about a parental relationship where all they do is fight back and forth and what that means for them, when we think about the mystery that has to be solved, and even in, we talked about Sherlock before, there we tend to have a situation where we don't see the villain on screen or on page very often, but it still is providing that level of conflict and that level of that plot engine that really drives the story forward. So when we think about making different groups, what does that look like? This is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, big favorite of mine. Highly recommend if you've never watched the original series. So what do we have here? We have Buffy, our hero. Um, we not only because she is there to save lives, but one of the ways that in this particular show that they were able to kind of subvert some expectations is that Buffy is a teenage girl, usually the last person we think about as a hero. Except, like I said, I did talk about Katniss Everdeen, so gotta love that. So we have Buffy as our hero. She has to be strong, she has to be brave, she has to be courageous, and then, but we've surrounded her with a group of people that are different than that. We have Willow, our magician. She is a literal witch. Over the course of the story, she is able to. She's also someone who does. She's a big reader. She's a big nerd in her sort of day-to-day life, and so she brings that element of knowledge of otherworldliness. Cordelia, a lot of times, is treated like the seductress, but she is also kind of that foil to Buffy, who is very brave. She also can play that innocence, a little bit of an innocent sort of character because a lot of things have to be explained to her. And Xander plays a similar role in that he asks a lot of questions, but he asks questions in the way that a jester would. He truly doesn't understand what's happening. He's not part of the solution, if you will. He is oftentimes someone who gets thrown around, he gets attacked, he always has to be saved. And there again is a way that the creators of the show subverted some expectations because he's the one that has to be saved. He's the one who is always screaming and running in the opposite direction. And then we have Rupert. Rupert is our caretaker and sage. He provides not only a library of information, a literal library, and don't we all just love a librarian? But he provides that literal library of information of who is being attacked, how can they defend themselves, but he also provides that emotional support. Buffy is a character who, while she is brave and she is courageous, she also can be defeated. She also can be someone who gets tired. She also is someone that has pressures on her that are difficult to manage. Would be difficult for anyone to manage constantly, killing vampires, but it is was particularly difficult because she is young and because she is in a position where she is other from the rest of her friends. She is and always separate in a way that she did not choose. And that conversation has to play out. And Rupert is there to really support her in a way that somebody like a mother is not able to provide. So, but we use this, we can use these dynamics and these different types of characters. We see them in the Golden Girls. I tried to pick some things that maybe I wouldn't spoil for you guys. So hopefully everybody has some familiarity with the Golden Girls. We have Rose, who is our innocent. We have Dorothy as our everyman. Blanche is our seductress, and I really appreciate that Sophia can play both roles, the crone and the sage. Sometimes she is here as a warning. Sometimes she is here to chastise, and sometimes she is here to just really take somebody by the hand and give them some gentle guidance and information. And so we really appreciate that about Sophia. What I'm saying here is that while we're thinking about having to put together a group and where that group is going to go, we want to be able to leverage expectations from those different archetypes, but also be able to challenge the assumptions that we have of what a hero looks like. What does a seductress look like? I didn't talk about the fact that Blanche as a seductress, as a much older woman than what we normally would see as someone who has a lot of different boyfriends and a lot of different experiences. So being able to challenge those assumptions immediately introduces not only a level of conflict into your story, but provides you with the ability to have characters that are that go against the grain and bring your story something that has a little bit of freshness and a little bit of life. If you have ever been in the query trenches, you know that a lot of traditional publishers are looking for something that is the same but different. And a lot of readers are under that same, they don't necessarily say it that way, but a lot of times that's what they're looking for too. We don't want the same old story, but we do want something that is familiar but also reads to us as fresh. So what are the things that we can kind of play with when we think about playing with expectations? We talked a little bit already about gender. We can definitely play around with gender, make somebody a little bit different than what they would normally expect. We can play around with the way that they look, and whether that look is by aging them up or aging them down, giving them a different age range that we're going to play with. It can also be creating characters that are not the person we would expect them to be. What does a billionaire look like, for example? And for a lot of us, when we say the word billionaire, we immediately think a nice looking man, probably in his 30s, probably in a suit. A very, very expensive suit, those kinds of things. What changes when that billionaire becomes a woman? What changes when that billionaire becomes a self-made female billionaire? There's a lot of things that can change in terms of how that dynamic plays out when she is the person that has the power versus a different character. And also what sort of elements that we have. There's a book called Lush Money by Angelina M. Lopez. And it's a great exploration of how a female billionaire plays that role in a way that is different than what we would normally see from a man. Um, Personality. Like I said, we can have a character like Willow, who is a brand new witch that and has a lot of learning that she has to do. So she's going to learn her craft alongside Buffy that is learning her craft. She is someone who is quiet and over time has to develop into a character that has power. And there's lots of things that change how she views her power and that her power changes her as a person. We might think about the way that habits come into play. And we'll talk more about habits in just a second. But we also want to talk about what are the fears and what are the motivations. What is it that Katniss Everdeen fears the most, right? Her fear is that her family, that her younger sister in particular, is going to die. And that is what motivates her into getting onto the train and volunteering as tribute. The problem is that in that moment when she volunteers, what she leaves behind is her sister, and another way for her sister to possibly be in danger because nobody is there to capture food and to feed her. Right? That was her role. And so she hands off that role to someone else. So we think about what are the things that people fear and what are the things that motivate them. Our hero, like we talked about before, our hero might be someone who is not ready to take on that role, somebody like a Luke Skywalker. But when he loses all of his family, he's able to kind of get over that and decide, yes, I want to go be, I want to go be part of the resistance. And then because of some other things that happen, right, we see him as our as the ultimate hero. So, thank you so much to Oliver for asking me about Sherlock because we are going to dive a little deeper into Sherlock and how some of these, how we can sort of play around with these expectations and what that means for the way that our characters are seen. So, I talked about the fact that I do love to see Sherlock in the original. Set him in the Victorian age, give him all the fabulous coats and horse and carriages, all that kind of thing. But if you've seen the updated Sherlock that stars Benedict Cumberbatch and uh, Martin Freeman, uh, if you've seen all that, fabulous. This has a really great dynamic between them. It has it updated it in a great way, put it into the modern age. Um, while keeping so much of the storylines, so many of the mysteries playing out in a more modern stage. Then we have a show like Elementary. Elementary we did a little gender swap here with a female character playing the role of Joan Watson. We also have but then we have Sherlock who really kind of embodies the role of Sherlock. But what's interesting between these two and where they really differentiate is that in the Sherlock BBC series, it maintained this idea that Sherlock's drug use is a bit of a quirk for him, something he does on occasion, and he has great control of it or what have you. But it's really felt as very much a quirk or something that he is just a part of his past. Whereas in Elementary, um, the drug use and the emotional impact, the physical impact that drug use and the psychological impact that drug use has had on Sherlock is front and center throughout the series. Joan is a sober companion. That's the reason that they come together. That's the reason that they have a relationship, the reason that they become friends. There's a lot of different episodes that tackle the way that addiction plays into the mindset of Sherlock in a way that we don't really see in a lot of the other ways that Sherlock is portrayed. And then we have a show like House, where House is set in medical versus a law enforcement type of an environment. And then we have Enola Holmes. This is one of the newer ones where we are playing a little bit with Sherlock is a side character. He appears in a couple of episodes each season, but the character of Enola really takes on that Sherlockian aspect as a young girl in that time period. So all these different ways that we can reinvent that same archetypal character. And what I want you to take away from this, what I really want you to know that when we're dealing with these different archetypes and how they play out, is that I want you to know the rules and break them with panache. It's really important that we understand what those reader expectations are for those types of characters so that when we subvert those expectations, our readers are delighted with the results. So I've mentioned a little bit about relationship dynamics and the importance that plays in how our story, what moves our story forward. So the dynamics of those different characters, again, whether you have a single central character or whether you've created a Scooby gang, if you will, of more of a group dynamic, is that we are influencing the process of growth and change through those interactions or the activities that they are taking on. And character relationships really propel that emotional story forward. You know, when we talked before about archetypes, One of the ones I mentioned about, um, being heroes is somebody in the military. You can take a story like Saving Private Ryan, where we have uh, 6 or 7 different military folks. And each one of those military people have a very different personality. They bring something completely different to the group dynamic. Again, we're going to see somebody who's a leader. We're going to see somebody who's a jester. We're going to see folks who are scared, who are brave, who are sometimes too brave for their own good. And when we think about how those characters interact with each other and what that means for the way that story plays out, when they lose their friends, when they are pushed, when they are challenged, what are the things that they argue over? We want to be able to see that play out because it when they have an emotional episode, we have an emotional episode. So even when you have characters that are all very similar, like a group of military men that are all together, we still want to be able to see those different archetypes, and we still want to see that as a dynamic group that has a lot of different elements to it. Relationships are going to be complex and engaging, but ultimately believable. That's what we're really searching for here. There is no, when we have very simple relationships, it means that they don't have significant depth. And you can play with that element for sure, but it doesn't, but remember that that is something to play with. It may not be able to create something that is engaging, right? We can have a very simple relationship with the waitress who takes our order at the coffee shop. And then when you are ready for that to become something that really engages people, then we start thinking about how we change that simple coffee order dynamic. Because ultimately, we want this to be believable. And there's three arcs that we can use in how we play out those dynamics. Number one, we think about how these characters challenge each other. What do they call each other on? How do they push each other? Push each other to be better, push each other to be worse. If we think about the relationship between a Superman and a Lex Luthor, right? The way that they challenge each other. Lex Luthor in the is always trying to either capture or replicate um or steal the power from Superman, right? That's what he is ultimately after. That's what we want to see from a Lex Luthor type of a character. And then a different type of an arc that we might be able to explore is the way that characters respect each other. Um, Sometimes that respect is going to blossom into friendship. It might blossom into a relationship. It might blossom into just being able to work together. But we really want to think about how that respect process is going to play out. And then the thing that I think a lot of times we don't talk about when we think about relationship dynamics and what relationships look like is that trust element, because we have trust in every trust is one of those things that we have in every single relationship with varying degrees and sort of in it's more of a spectrum than some of the other elements. For example, you trust the person that is driving your Uber. There's a certain amount of trust that you have in getting in the car with that stranger that they are going to drop you off wherever you are, wherever it is that you're heading. But that is a trust that, doesn't necessarily end up equating to a relationship. You may not be able to remember that person later versus the trust that we have when we are going into the office to work. What is that going to look like? How much trust do you have in a boss? And what does it look like when you have a boss that your character cannot trust? Um, and then when we think about what does that mean in terms of a family dynamic? If we have a family and you know that there are untrustworthy characters within that, whether that is physically untrustworthy, maybe they are violent, maybe they are unpredictable, maybe they are someone who's emotionally untrustworthy. Is that somebody who is going to be an attacker, someone who is abusive, or someone who is just unreliable? and what that means for how your character grows and changes over the course of the story. And then, of course, we might have trust in a relationship that is meant to be that's meant to be a love relationship. If we have two people that are falling in love, they can be attracted to each other initially by their look or by their job or by the way that they interact. But how does that momentary love at first sight type of a feeling, how does that grow over time into becoming a real relationship that feels believable? Remember, we have to keep it believable at the end of the day, even when someone is falling in love with a blue alien. We still have to be able to believe in the trust and believe in that engagement. So ask yourself those questions. When you are putting together your group, when you are putting together your all your different characters and creating that dynamic, what are the things that they are doing that are going to challenge each other? What are the things that they are going to do to respect each other's differences? How do they learn to trust each other? What situations are you putting them in? What conversations do they need to have? Who is falling off the side of a mountain and needs to be saved? Who does the saving? Who did the pushing? What are those things that we need to make sure that we know are key elements of developing that trust, that respect, and acknowledging the challenge that we have to have in order to move things forward. So let's spend a little time talking about that supporting cast. Like I said, a lot of times we have a central main character. You can argue that Sherlock is the main character, or like we said, we talked a lot about John Watson. And in other types of dynamics where we have groups, who is it that's offering support? Um, like I said, sometimes that person is the caretaker, like our Rupert character. But what other kinds of support would those side characters be able to join? When we have a supporting cast, we want to make sure that even if they are playing a small role, that those characters have depth and are not simply cardboard cutouts. So when they offer support, how do they offer that support? We don't want them to just, you know, blather off the information like, oh, here's the secret that you need to know. You want to think about how, if they have a relationship that is that's antagonistic, um, what does it mean for them to offer support to that antagonist? Whether that means that you have a family relationship, whether that means that you have a working relationship in an office type situation, how they offer support, or in the ways that um, they hide their support, has an impact on how that story plays out and what that dynamic looks like. They also give us a chance to see the story from a different perspective. We talked before a little bit about point of view and how important it is to be able to change up that point of view. Now, you may have a story where you're like, no, I don't have other people's point of views. I only write in, I write in first person. This is how the story goes. That's not really what I'm talking about here. I want you to think about how you can give someone else's perspective, either because they have a fight and things get said that they did not mean to say, whether something is overheard, whether something is, and how that piece of information is shared from someone, the way that somebody else views them. You can also think about um, what is implied versus what is revealed. When we have characters in a television show or a movie or something like that, you can use creative editing in order to get a point across. How do we know that that character feels something for the other character? In the Pride and Prejudice movie, everybody knows the hand flex. That hand flex means that he is in love with her. When we see a character give just a hint of a smile, does that tell us that they are cheating? Does that tell us that they are in love? Does that tell us that they have a secret? And the written word, of course, we have to be a lot more creative with the way that we do. We can't just put it into the background. but consider what it means for how people are implying and revealing information, their feelings, their emotions, and their motivations. And most importantly, we can use the supporting cast to be able to challenge beliefs. There's no single belief that is believed by everybody, every time, everywhere. What does this particular situation mean? You can have a character who is um, falling in love with her coworker, and I don't know what this means. And then you might have the supportive friend who is listening and nodding and smiling. But you also might have that friend who's challenging them and says, "Oh my God, you guys are adults, just have a conversation," right? And if you can solve it with a conversation, then I don't have to listen to you anymore. We want those characters to be able to challenge what is currently happening, to be able to either derail or be able to encourage our main characters as they push forward through the story. We want them to be able to be seen as important, even when they are only a short period of time. Um, so think about what types of dynamics that you're creating with all of your side characters and even with those characters that are only there for a short period. But most importantly, for all of your characters, do not make them perfect. People are messy. Even when you are talking about fake characters, when you've created a fantasy world, um, remember that those characters are still something that we as humans are going to relate to in some way. We're going to be engaged. We're going to believe them, and we really love when there is messiness behind the scenes, however that plays out for your characters and for the creatures that you're writing about. And we love mess because otherwise things are too clean and too simple, and then we don't have enough depth of story. And that's really what the dynamic is encouraging, is to create a story that has more depth to it, that there are more layers to it, that there's more about these people that we don't realize at first sight. We all make mistakes. All humans make mistakes. All characters need to be able to make mistakes. They need to be able to do things in a way that we don't agree with. How many times has Sherlock been rude, right? That's a big part of his character, is how rude and obnoxious that he can be with his knowledge, even though he's here to help and he has this great desire to pursue justice and to solve the mystery. But he does it in a way that is very off-putting most of the time. So even when if we have a character that is too perfect, it's just something that we cannot relate to, and it's something that ultimately is not going to be believable. Um, and of course, we are going to doubt the intentions of others. We're going to doubt what characters say when there is something just too slick about them. We are going to doubt our own ability to climb the mountain, to shoot out the Death Star. We are going to doubt our ability to be the person that those around us need. We're not going to be able to um, stab the vampires. So we think about those doubts and we think about those mistakes and we think about the mess that is central to being human and how we incorporate that into our stories, even when our characters are supposed to be um, exalted or lifted up. So all these different elements sort of come together to create messy, believable, engaging characters that drive your story forward and create something really memorable. And if you are thinking, that wasn't in my outline, Jen, I'm not sure what it is I'm supposed to do, it's really okay to write the book first. One of the great things that about the writing process is the revision process. And I know that not everybody loves the revision process. 10 years as a developmental editor, trust me, I love the revision process. But it's really okay to write the book first, get all the way to the end, and then be able to go back and realize what are some of the dynamics that are missing. If you've spent a lot of time getting the plot onto the page, think about where you're going to where you can add in the emotional element. so that those characters have the highs and the lows, meaning that our readers, of course, are going to have those highs and lows. We want them to be on an emotional roller coaster. And that's true even if we're in an adventure, an action adventure story, right? We love to see Indiana Jones grabbing onto a vine and getting across the gauge. We want to see him running from the giant boulder. We want to see all of those kinds of things, but we also want to have those scary moments. We want to have those adventure moments, and we want to have those soft moments. We want to see him betrayed by an old friend, because that makes us under. We have that understanding because every person has been betrayed by someone that they had thought they could trust. So it's really okay to write the book first and bring in this dynamic element later on. It can also help you if you have created side characters that feel a little bit too similar. You can either, change them up and make them into different types of characters, combine a few different people that are all the same, combine them, make them into one character. All of that is okay to do. It's really okay to write your book first and add your layers later, um, whether you are an onion or a trifle. It all works. So I hope this has been a helpful conversation for everyone. I hope you've had, there have been some elements here that you're going to grab and you're going to take into your own writing. I hope that you'll take a minute and maybe connect with me. You can find me on my website, jentheeditor.com. Join my newsletter. I have a newsletter that goes out every month. In that, I share marketing and mindset tips with authors from all different genres. I have a podcast as well. My podcast is Books, Business, and Mindset, a podcast for authors. You can find that on all the popular podcast channels. I also do one-on-one coaching. So, one-on-one coaching is an opportunity for you to ask me anything. You can talk through your plans and the decisions that you need to make, whether we're talking about story and characters, whether we're talking about productivity as an author that has a day job and a family that they have to care for, or whether we are talking about, the book isn't selling now, what do I do? I do a free session for new clients. I truly believe that you have to seek out a coach that works for you and with you and understands who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. So I encourage people to have a free session with me. And if I'm not your coach, perfectly fine. I'm going to send you off with a list of other people for you to chat with. And then finally is Work It. Work It is my 6-week coaching intensive. This starts next week, September 2nd. Every week we do a live workshop. Every week there is a weekly coaching, group coaching session with the folks there. Everybody also gets one-on-one coaching, and there's a networking component. You are connected with all of the alumni who have taken this course in the past. Like I said, this starts on September 2nd. All of the details and testimonials are on my website. Go have a look at that and see if that appeals to you. I would love to have you join us. We do 2 weeks talking about business and marketing topics. We spend 2 weeks talking about craft topics and really diving deep into craft. And we also spend 2 weeks on mindset and productivity. So I hope this will be helpful for anybody out there who is writing fiction. So, all right, Oliver, are there some questions for me?
Yes, there are a couple questions here for you. Let me pull those up real quick and we'll get
Fabulous,
started with
fabulous.
those. Yes. So first off, and this was asked several times, I'm going to dismiss it here, but can characters have more than one archetype assigned to them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that archetype can also change over time. So when we want to think about the way that archetypes play out, um, uh, we can use Xander as a good example. Xander in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series is someone that is mostly the jester. He's mostly a jester. But he's also the everyman because he's someone that can ask a lot of questions and be able to pull information out. We have Cordelia, who, like I said, a lot of times is played up as a seductress, but she is also someone who can provide Buffy with a little bit of reality check in the same way that a sage would, although sometimes she plays a little bit more of a crone because she's all about the warnings and sort of keeping her grounded. So it's really okay to combine those different archetypes into one, as as well as you kind of think about what how that dynamic is playing out over time and over the course of their arc, right? Because we want our characters to change. So what do they change into? Luke Skywalker starts off as very much an innocent, right? He's sitting there and playing with his little toy airplane or toy starship, and by the time we get to the end, he's much more of a hero. He's very much the hero archetype. He has just saved the universe by destroying the Death Star. So you can absolutely play around with these archetypes and combine them into single characters.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have here Nikki's just asking if you have any recommended readings to further develop her characters, character flaws, and things like that.
Oh yeah. One of the books that I highly recommend for folks is The Heroine's Journey by Gail Carriger. And I think it might be G. Carriger, is the way that she has it listed. A lot of folks have heard about the hero's journey, which is plays out not only in Star Wars, but was written about in Hero with a Thousand Faces by Joseph Campbell. And that is a storytelling structure that you can follow where we have the hero's journey is about the his uh, that characters, that central characters journey into becoming the ideal hero. He is looking for a particular boon. He's looking, he sort of goes through a number of steps. And a lot of people are very familiar with that, with what that looks like. The heroine's journey is also based on ancient myths and legends and plays out almost in the opposite of the hero's journey. These are not gendered terms. I just want to be super clear. This isn't about a male's the journey of a male or the journey of a female. It's not really what hero and heroine are really all about. In the heroine's journey, in terms of story structure, we start with a character that has been separated from those that they love or from their world in some way. And as they progress through the story, their goal is to collect others. It is very much about community building. And as we get towards the end, it's less about the single hero and more about doing what is best for the community at large. And so examples of this might be the Wonder Woman movie that came out, the one that was set in World War One. That's very much a hero's journey, a hero story. And if we think about Harry Potter, the Harry Potter series, that is very much a heroine's journey where Harry starts off literally separated from his family in a very dark place and then collects friends and a community around him in order to defeat the big bad. So and it's really up to the community to be able to be successful versus the one individual at the end of the Wonder Woman movie, not to spoil it, but Wonder Woman wins at the end of that battle. So yeah, so those are some examples. But what I really like about the book The Heroine's Journey is that Gail really goes into a lot of different types of characters and does talk about character archetypes.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so Ed is just asking about some general suggestions because you mentioned mindset and productivity. If there's any, like maybe, let's say, best tips for productivity and mindset.
Oh, sure. Okay, how about this? Um, Tip for productivity, you need to be writing. Tip for mindset, you do not have to write every day.
That's great. I love to hear that.
To kind of expand on that just a little bit though, is that it's okay to take breaks with your writing. I think it's really important for authors to remember that you are creating entire worlds, entire characters, entire conversations literally out of thin air. Everything sort of has to spend some time marinating in your brain in order for it to flow out and become words on the page. And because of that, regardless of how much that you have outlined your story, regardless of how much detail you went into, you might find that the story is not playing out the way that you had initially intended, and that's okay. It's absolutely okay for that to be the case. What you then have to do is maybe take a little bit of a break and kind of walk away from it for a day or two and really be able to contemplate what is that going to look like. I call it, staring out the window time. Sometimes you just have to stare into space and just, I wonder what that, I wonder, and just really give yourself time to let things develop and create. When we put too much pressure on ourselves to be infinitely creative every single day, that path leads to burnout. And that is something that's really difficult to recover from. We really have to take some time off in order to come back to ourselves. I will also say that I really encourage people to find ways to fill the well on a very regular basis. Don't allow yourself to get all the way into burnout before you recognize that you, one, have to take a break. You have to sleep. You absolutely have to sleep. If you are somebody that is struggling with sleep, I'm just going to tell you right now that if you are struggling with sleep, everything else in life is going to be more challenging. So figure out what you have to figure out to fix that. I do have on my website, jentheeditor.com/, resources. You should be able to find my Fill the Well mini workbook. It's free. It's out there available for you. If you don't find it, just send me a note. You can use the contact form on my website. Send me a note and let me know that you want it, and I'll just email it to you. Okay, guys? Take good care of yourself. Take good care of your creativity. You can run out of it, and trying to write a book when the creativity well is dry, not going to be a fun time. Just not going to be a fun time.
Totally agree. I totally agree with that sentiment. And it's really easy today. We live in like this busy, busy, busy culture where people kind of like, what do you call it? They glorify this busy life.
Yeah.
In reality, like it's okay. Take the break. It's okay to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't have to do it
There's
all.
uh there's actually, and there's a lot of science behind it. There's a ton of science that will tell you that those breaks and giving yourself an opportunity to be refreshed and to be inspired will make you more creative in the long term.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we just got a few more questions here. I mean,
Yeah.
this is great. We are at the top of the hour. You okay to hang on just for a few more minutes?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Great. So, we have this question. What do you do, watch, or read in order to develop a character from a community that is not your own? So, I guess she's trying to
Yeah.
get outside of
So
herself and yeah, yeah,
the number one thing I will say is that whenever you are trying to write a character that is not like you, not from your experience, not from where you live, all those kinds of things, is to read materials by those people in that place. So I am a white woman that lives in Southern California. If I want to incorporate a Black person from the South, then I need to make sure that I am reading materials and consuming media that is written by a Black Southern person in order to get that true experience. Um, it can be really difficult when you are trying to write or and incorporate characters in a historical context because we don't necessarily have that firsthand experience. But be really cautious about reading exclusively from um, interpretations of what happened. If you are wanting to write about the Iroquois Indians, for example, you want to make sure that you are not only reading historical documents that are written by white people, right? Because it is an interpretation of their experience, not their actual experience. So that's the number one thing. Number two is that if you are writing somebody that is outside of your experience, look for sensitivity readers that are going to help you with that. This is different than asking your best friend who is gay to be able to read this gay character and determine whether or not this is somebody that is appropriately represented. And the reason I say that is because we love our best friends and our best friends love us. And sometimes our best friends uh, are not equipped to be able to tell us from a broader perspective of what's happening in the world. They are not, no culture, no race, no experience is a monolith. And while they have their own background and their own experiences in the world, you want to sort of expand that out and not depend on one single person to determine whether you have told a story, because you're not telling their story, right? My guess is you're not telling that best friend story. So you want to make sure that you get a much broader view and not just depend on one single person to be able to give you perspective. If you are looking for something like that, especially if you're looking for historical information about a region or a people that you can no longer just reach out to and ask, I would recommend connecting up with university professors and finding out if they have some recommendations on some books that are primary materials or other types of materials that you might be able to access. And also, some college professors are very happy to be interviewed. You can just ask them questions, and when they are a nerd about any particular subject, um, us nerds, we love to talk. So you can so by all means, feel free to reach out, get some time on their calendar, ask if there is some way that you can compensate them for that time, and be able to ask your questions of somebody who has some real depth of knowledge that you'd be able to leverage.
Excellent. Okay, so we just have a couple more questions.
Mhm.
Nick is asking if you have any tips for naming characters. He says he always overthinks this. And real quick before you respond, I also just want to say too, Scrivener does have a name generator. Okay, it works really well, and so I would recommend you check that out. I'll show you Nick. I'll probably on Thursday when I have that session. But yes, go ahead, take it away. How do you handle it, Jen?
Oh my gosh. Names are one of those things I can absolutely understand. Naming my kids was a challenge and a half, and I did read an entire baby book of names, one of those big thick ones, just trying to get ideas about what that would look like. I would say, number one, don't allow the name to derail you from your writing. Please don't feel like you cannot start writing if you don't know the character's name. Go ahead and start writing. You can start working on the story, because again, we're going to come back to this in revisions. You can always change things up and give them a different name. So keep that in mind. It can be as simple as find and replace. It'll be all right. The other thing I'll say is that, especially over the course of the writing process, you might discover some things that really inform what this character's name is. So if we're operating in a contemporary time period, for example, there might be some baggage with naming a young girl Karen or calling some guy Chad, right? There can be a little bit of baggage that is associated with that. Thinking about whether you have written a book that feels symbolic or historical, and wanting to use names that would be appropriate and meaningful in that regard, um, you might be able to discover more about your character as you know more about the journey that they are on. You can also always look at, what were the popular names for a particular time period. And like I said, those baby names books, those still exist. And I liked having a little bit of information about where they came from and what they mean and sort of what their historical context was, that type of stuff. But ultimately, you can name somebody anything that you want, um, and just kind of go with it. So
Perfect. And I want to speak to that, Jen. Like, for the with the name generator in Scrivener, rarely do I use the name that is given to me, but sometimes you just need a name, right? In the
yes,
beginning, I'm like, I hate having like name here, or some weird like gobbledygook phrase that doesn't really mean anything. But if you actually have a
yeah,
name there, you can put it in there. It's a filler name. It's searchable. It's easy to find. You can easily
hmm
do it, like you said, a find and replace. Quickly
yeah,
change it. So yeah, doing something like that, and I think sometimes we're such like all of us tend to be like perfectionists. We want to get it right the first time, but
we
it's
do,
totally okay to
we
just say,
do.
"Hey, I'm gonna fix this later. I got something for
Yes,
now."
you only have to get it right enough to be able to move on. And you definitely want, yeah. don't use the gobbledygook. Just use something that you can use. One tiny little trip. If you are a visual person, if you can see this character in your head and there is a, movie star past or present that really fits that archetype, really fits who it is that you're visualizing, go ahead and use Henry Cavill. It's really okay. Just use the name Henry. We all know that's the ultimate handsome guy that you want to be putting into your books. No. But it can really help you because if you do have, if the visual is really important to you, you can use that. If it's a character, if it's more of a character like a Sherlock type character, go ahead and use the name Sherlock until you figure out what your Sherlock is, right? Sherlock was not the most popular name for men in the Victorian age. It was, it's definitely a little bit out there. We really don't see people named Sherlock. So it's really okay to be able to make something up or compound something if that is really what works for you.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I'm going to close it up with one more question here. And this one kind of goes back to our mindset and productivity. They're asking,
Yeah.
okay, so what if I'm already burnt out and just
Hmm.
like I've lost all my creativity? What steps can I take to get back to that creativity again?
Yeah. So, what's really interesting is that there is a great book out it's called Burnout. It's by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. They both have PhDs in different things. And the Burnout book is directed specifically at women, but there's a lot of information in there that applies regardless of who you are or how you identify. And chapter one of that book is really fantastic and has always stood out to me because they talk a lot about the stress cycle. And the stress cycle is something that we want to think about. And I promise this is going to relate to creativity. Hang with me for just a second. They talk about the stress cycle the same way that we have a digestive cycle. If your digestive cycle stops in the middle and does not complete, you will get sick and you could probably end up in the hospital. That's just how digestion works. Stress is something that we also have to work our way all the way through. It's not about removing the stress out of your life. If you are someone that has a chronic illness or um, children to raise or a day job or those kinds of things, you can't necessarily just simply leave everything behind and go live in a cabin in the woods. We don't really have that option realistically. So there's always going to be stress in your life, and being able to find ways to work all the way through that is very meaningful and very important. And a lot of these are things that really date back way, way, way back to caveman times. Okay, so hang with me. There are seven that are scientifically proven, lots of peer reviewed. These are your seven steps to be able to deal with your stress. And what I have found is that when you look at the creativity research, when you look at what makes somebody more creative, what makes somebody be able to develop this, what helps people to get through the creative burnout, um, what helps somebody who is a creative professional in burnout, there's a ton of overlap. Okay. And there's more information about this in my Filling the Well handout. So definitely go have a look at that. But seven things scientifically proven. Number one, laugh. Not laugh, giggle, hee hee. No, that belly laugh, that belly laugh that makes you tear up and cry, that belly laugh where you can't hardly breathe because you are laughing so hard. That type of laugh helps you through that stress cycle and can get you to the other side. If you've ever had an evening with people that are important to you and laughed so hard that you couldn't breathe, you know that the next day you wake up and the whole world feels like a better place. By the same token, a good solid cry is going to accomplish something very similar. A cry where you are not you are not stopping yourself, you're not challenging yourself, you're not worried about how you are making somebody else feel, but just that ability to have a good, strong, cathartic cry can also help you to change the way that your brain is wired. So laugh and cry, rest and sleep. I talked about it before. I'm going to talk about it again. You have to be able to rest. If you were somebody that you were lifting weights and you pulled a muscle, like gave yourself a good little injury there, what is the first thing that they have you do? They put that arm in a sling, they attach it to your body, and they say, don't move that arm. You have to rest the muscles in order for those muscles to heal. It's the same thing for your brain. You have to be able to rest your brain in order to, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be asleep, but you do have to sort of disconnect and give your brain a chance to reset. So try to sleep 7 to 9 hours is the recommended. And I know some of you are already rolling your eyes. You're like, I haven't slept 7 hours in 10 years. I get it. Again, maybe see a doctor. So sleep is a good thing, but so is movement. Get moving. I'm not here to lecture you about going to the gym or going for a run or any of those things. If you like going to the gym and like going for a run, by all means, go have a good time. But move your body in a way that doesn't involve sitting at your computer. Writing is a very sedentary process, but in the chair, hands on the keyboard, right? The only thing that we move are the ends of our fingers. We get a lot of tension built up here. We have to get that moving. So do something that is the opposite of sitting still. Walk your neighborhood, go to yoga. I'm going to tell you guys right now, there's almost 200 of you on this thing, and I don't know how many people are going to watch this recording. Maybe they won't. I have a beginning hip hop dance class that I go to. And when I tell you it makes me smarter, I know you're going to laugh, but I do. I am a terrible dancer, like really bad dancer, but it doesn't matter because I'm there to move and I'm there to move in a way that makes me happy. So find whatever it is for you and move your body in a way that feels fun and interesting. If you don't have classes in your neighborhood, by all means, turn on some music and have a dance party in your living room. I literally have a playlist that is my living room concert series where I can sing at the top of my lungs and be absolutely ridiculous. Move your body, it's going to change things. So we've laughed, we've cried, we have slept, we have moved around. We're going to get a little bigger here, and we're going to talk about the importance of community. Knowing that you have a community around you is really important. Being involved either directly into your community that's local to you, being involved in your author community, being able to create friendships and network with other authors means the absolute world. This is a tough business. This is a challenging industry. You want to have other people around you that you can talk to and vent to and laugh with and enjoy. Um, two more that I'll talk about here. Hugging someone, a really good hug. Stand on your own 2 feet, hold your own weight, but hug somebody for a solid like 10 to 15 seconds. It's a good, long, hard hug. There's something that fixes that. Number one, because that's not something that you experience with just any random person from, walking down the street. Being hugged like that by somebody who is important to you is healing. Being hugged like that and knowing that you have somebody that you can depend on, it means a lot. Um, and the last thing is kissing. Same idea. That kiss means that you are actually, that's not the last thing. Sorry, we're only on number 6. But being able to kiss someone means that you have somebody that is important in your life, somebody that you can depend on, somebody that you trust with your body. And that's incredibly important. So being able to kiss someone for longer than 10 seconds, right? And the last thing I'll say is being able to connect with something greater than you. For some people, that's religion. For some people, that's the universe. For some people, that's going out in the woods. People talk about the importance of touching grass and being out there in the world and sort of bringing yourself back to nature. There is a whole lot of science. There's a whole lot of science behind what it means to be able to be in a natural environment, to be able to hear the birds sing, to listen to the ocean waves, to know that there is life happening around you. Whether you get that through a Spotify playlist, whether you are, headed into Muir Woods, whatever it is that works for you, and whatever is accessible to you, make sure that you are making time for that and connecting with something that is greater than you. All of those things are going to help you to complete that stress cycle, and as a creative professional, that is going to help you start to work through your burnout. There's a few other things as a creative you want to think about. What kinds of things inspire you? You want to think about making writing fun again when you feel like you can write. You really want to take the pressure off of yourself, all those kinds of things. So there's a lot to it, and I'm so sorry that you are in burnout. I've been there. I have clients that have been there. It is a hard thing to get through, but I believe in you. A little time and care and attention, which can be so difficult to shower ourselves with. But that's really what helps you kind of work through that. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jen. That was amazing. So I just want to say thank you, everyone, for participating. This has been a remarkable session. I love all the questions. I've learned a lot, and I can see from the chat everyone has learned a lot as well today. So
Oh, good.
once
I'm
again,
so glad.
thank you. Yeah, this is great. That concludes our presentation on crafting characters readers love with Jen Graybeal. I'm sure I can tell we all found it informative. Thank you all for attending and participating, and I will see you all next time. Until then, thank you, Jen. We'll see
Thank you
ya.
so much, Oliver. Take
All
care,
right.
everyone. Happy
Take
writing.
care.